The galaxy had not known peace for 1,000 years. Entire star systems were consumed by fire. Planets that once glittered with life now floated as silent, lifeless rocks in the dark. Civilizations that had lasted for millennia were wiped away, leaving only ruins and echoes of memory. The warlords of the Zypherians, the Kalari, the Vorthan Hive, and countless smaller factions fought endlessly, each believing that victory was possible. Yet, despite their fleets of billions and weapons capable of tearing planets apart, no one could conquer the other. Every battle ended in devastation, and every victory was temporary. The galaxy had become a graveyard, and hope was almost forgotten. In the midst of this chaos lay the small, neutral planet of Devar. Its mountains were tall, its oceans deep, and its people were scholars, traders, and dreamers. Devar had survived because it stayed out of wars. Its citizens watched the violence from a distance, helpless to stop it. They often whispered about a distant species, humans whose home planet was called Earth. The humans were small in number and had barely touched the stars. But there were rumors that they carried a fire no warlord could extinguish, a courage no army could crush. No one believed it. The galactic leaders laughed at the humans. Primitive creatures, they said. They are weak. They cannot even defend themselves, let alone fight a war across the stars. But the humans arrived quietly, their small ships gliding into the galaxy without fanfare. They did not boast. They did not threaten. They simply watched and they learned. On board the human flagship Intrepid, Captain Alara Ven stood in the bridge, her green eyes reflecting the stars on the holographic map. The galaxy looked like a web of fire and shadow, lines connecting worlds that were constantly at war. "Every war ends someday," she whispered more to herself than anyone else. "We just have to find the way." Around her, the human crew moved with calm precision. They were young and inexperienced in galactic warfare, yet they carried something stronger than fleets or weapons, an unbreakable spirit. Their first move was simple. They offered aid to the small, struggling colonies. Supplies, medical teams, engineers, and knowledge were sent to worlds torn by conflict. The humans did not ask for allegiance. They did not demand anything in return. They simply helped. At first, the warlords mocked them. "Do you think we will stop our war because a few humans bring food?" They laughed. But the galaxy is not ruled by laughter alone. Stories began to spread of humans saving entire colonies without firing a single shot. Cities rebuilt, crops grew again, and survivors began to hope. Hope, in a galaxy that had forgotten it, was a dangerous thing. The humans spoke differently than anyone else. They did not threaten. They did not demand. They asked, they reasoned, and they inspired. And with every life saved, with every world restored even slightly, the whispers grew louder. The warlords began to notice. The small humans were changing the galaxy, not with weapons, but with courage and compassion. Captain Alara looked out at the endless stars, feeling the weight of centuries of death. "We are small," she admitted to herself, "but even small sparks can light the darkness." And in that moment, the galaxy shifted unknowingly, toward a future that no one had imagined, where humans, fragile yet unyielding, could change the course of a war that no one else could conquer. The humans had arrived quietly, but the galaxy was about to notice them. The Kalari, one of the most feared factions, had set their sights on the peaceful planet of Nareen. It was a world of forests, rivers, and small towns that had never known war. But the Kalari cared nothing for peace. Their warships appeared in orbit like shadows of death, weapons charged, ready to burn the planet into ash. Captain Alara Ven stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching the planet tremble under the Kalari fleet's shadow. "They will destroy everything if we do nothing," she said. Around her, the crew, though young and small in number, prepared silently. They had no hope of matching the Kalari's firepower, but they had something the enemy did not: determination, courage, and the ability to think differently. The Kalari laughed when the humans arrived. "Do you think your small ships can stop us?" One of their commanders broadcasted. "We will burn your world before you blink." The humans did not respond with threats. They did not raise weapons. Instead, they sent shuttles carrying supplies, engineers, and doctors. Civilians evacuated in panic as the humans guided them to safety. Then, when the Kalari fired, the humans acted. Using precision and intelligence rather than brute force, they maneuvered their small fleet to disrupt the enemy's systems. With a series of daring moves, the humans disabled the Kylari's weapons without destroying their ships. One by one, the massive cannons went silent. The Kylari fleet, confused and humiliated, had no choice but to retreat. It was impossible. No one in the galaxy had ever stopped the Kylari without a massive fleet or total destruction. Yet humans had done it without killing a single person, without causing needless pain. The galaxy whispered in disbelief. Stories of this battle spread faster than fire. The humans were changing the rules of war. They fought not to conquer, but to protect. Back on the Intrepid, Captain Alara watched as the last Kylari ship disappeared into hyperspace. "We saved them," she said softly, almost in awe. Not with guns, but with courage. Her crew smiled, exhausted but proud. Each knew they had witnessed something no one thought possible. A species thought weak had just shown that intelligence, strategy, and compassion could rival even the deadliest fleets. In the days after the battle, refugees returned to their cities, finding that the humans had repaired buildings, restored power, and even planted new crops. Children laughed again and parents cried in relief. For the first time in decades, Nerine was alive, and the galaxy noticed. The Kylari were furious. They had been humiliated not by strength but by ingenuity. For the first time, a leader wondered if humans were dangerous, not because of their firepower but because of something else. Their spirit. Word spread to other warlords. Cypherian spies reported the humans' actions. The Vorthan hive observed quietly. All of them, even the most ruthless, began to feel a strange unease. Humans had done the impossible. They had fought a battle and won without bloodshed. They had shown the galaxy that courage was not measured in weapons but in hearts, and Captain Alara knew this was only the beginning. "We cannot stop here," she said to her crew. "If we save one planet, we save one world. But if we inspire the galaxy, we can save them all." The humans nodded. They were tired, battered, and small, but their spirits burned brighter than any star. And far across the galaxy, where warlords plotted and fleets gathered, a single thought took root. These humans. They are not like us. They are something else. The first battle was over. The war continued, but something had changed. For the first time, hope had returned to the galaxy, carried on the shoulders of a small, brave species from a tiny blue planet, and the universe would never be the same again. After the first battle at Nerine, the humans became more than observers. They became a spark of hope in a galaxy that had long forgotten what hope felt like. Captain Alara Venn knew that fighting fleets was only part of the solution. The greater challenge was to change hearts. She believed that even the fiercest warlords could learn that war was not inevitable, that destruction was not the only answer. The humans traveled from system to system, visiting neutral worlds, devastated colonies, and even war-torn cities. They carried more than ships. They carried aid, knowledge, and words. In simple, honest language, they spoke of unity, peace, and the value of life. "We fight," Alara would say, "not to dominate, but to protect. Every life saved matters. Every world rebuilt matters. You are stronger than you think." At first, few listened. Many thought humans naive, foolish, or weak. The warlords laughed at their tiny ships and small crews. Yet humans never faltered. They entered burning cities to rescue trapped civilians. They repaired broken systems while dodging enemy attacks. They treated injured enemies and refugees with the same care as their own. Each act, small or large, carried a message. Humanity was not like the others. Then the whispers began. Survivors told stories of humans moving among the dead and dying, saving lives in the midst of fire. Colonists spoke of humans who faced impossible odds without fear. Scientists and engineers joined human convoys, sharing knowledge and inventions that could rebuild destroyed planets. Humans inspired not by fear but by courage and kindness. The galaxy took notice. Some warlords, once proud and unyielding, began to question their choices. One Kylari commander, known for merciless raids, hesitated before firing on a human convoy. "What are we fighting for?" he muttered, as if for the first time. For centuries he had known only war and conquest. Humanity's courage was forcing him to see another way. The humans also reached out to the Zypherians, the Vorthan hive, and even smaller factions. They offered talks on neutral planets, spaces where weapons were banned and discussions were protected. They did not demand surrender. They did not promise riches. They simply asked, "Can we find another way? Can we save lives instead of destroying them?" Some leaders laughed, some ignored them, but a few were curious. A fragile, delicate hope began to spread. Humans, small and underestimated, were slowly weaving a web of peace, diplomacy, and trust across the galaxy. They did not conquer with fleets or pawns. They conquered with strategy, intelligence, and unshakable moral courage. Captain Alara looked out at the stars from her ship's bridge, thinking about the long road ahead. "It will not be easy," she told her crew, "but we are showing the galaxy that war is a choice, not a destiny." Her crew nodded silently. They had already risked everything to save a single world, and now they were risking everything to save billions. In the war-torn sectors, people began to talk. Children asked their parents why humans were so brave. Soldiers, exhausted by endless fighting, wondered if they could fight differently. Even entire fleets paused in their attacks, observing the humans with disbelief. Humans had become a new force in the galaxy, not a conqueror, not a tyrant, but a challenge to the old order. And far away, in the dark corridors of warlord fleets, anxiety grew. The humans were small, yes, but their ideas were enormous. The galaxy had never seen a species that could inspire courage without threats, hope without weapons, and strategy without killing. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy realized that the humans were not simply another species to ignore or destroy. They were something else entirely. A spark that could light the darkness, a force that could change the rules of war forever. Captain Alara closed her eyes for a moment and whispered, "We fight not with hate. We fight with hope, and hope is more powerful than any weapon." The diplomacy of fire had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy was a broken place, scarred by endless war, but humans were slowly changing that. After months of traveling, aiding colonies, and negotiating with reluctant leaders, Captain Alara Venn realized that helping isolated worlds was not enough. The war would never end if the warring factions continued to fight each other relentlessly. Humanity needed allies, not just survivors. They needed a coalition strong enough to protect the innocent and inspire change. The first to join were the smaller factions, worlds that had suffered the most under the constant battles. These colonies were tired of fleeing, tired of losing their homes, and tired of seeing their children die. When humans offered assistance and protection, these worlds responded with gratitude and trust. Engineers, medics, and soldiers joined human crews. Refugees provided information about enemy fleets, secret bases, and hidden weapons. Together, they began to form a force not built on fear or aggression, but on courage, strategy, and shared hope. Captain Alara called this coalition the United Star Pact. It was fragile at first. The members distrusted each other, having fought side by side one day and against each other the next for decades. But humans served as mediators, using honesty and logic to build understanding. "We are not here to dominate," Alara said to the Council of Leaders. "We are here to survive. We are here to protect lives. If we fight together, we can save countless worlds. If we fight apart, nothing will survive." Some warlords laughed at the idea. "A few humans and weak planets cannot change the galaxy," sneered a Kylari general. But the coalition grew despite their mockery. Refugees who had lost everything became heroes. Scientists who had abandoned their research returned to build better ships, medical systems, and defenses. Farmers who had once tilled barren lands now helped grow food for fleets. The galaxy was witnessing something it had never seen before, a force built on unity and compassion rather than fear. Even the warlords who had been the most ruthless began to feel the shift. They saw how humans rescued entire cities during battles, how they protected civilians even when under fire, and how their actions inspired loyalty and courage among allies. One Zephyrian commander, long feared for his cold cruelty, found himself hesitating before firing on a coalition convoy. Why do they not strike back with anger? He wondered aloud. Why do they care for those who would destroy them? The humans' influence reached far beyond the battlefield. They rebuilt communication networks, restored trade routes, and even mediated disputes between smaller factions. They showed the galaxy that strength was not measured in weapons or fleets, but in trust, intelligence, and courage. Their actions inspired other planets to resist aggression, refuse unnecessary violence, and focus on protecting life. Despite the progress, the alliance remained fragile. Suspicion ran deep and betrayal was always possible. But humans had a way of reminding everyone that they were stronger together than apart. Captain Alara often spoke to her crew late at night, Fear has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years, she said. We cannot erase it overnight. But if we act with courage and compassion, even a little at a time, we can change everything. As the Coalition prepared for its first joint operation, a mission to defend the border planet of Viridian from a Zephyrian fleet, human engineers worked tirelessly to upgrade ships, medics trained civilians to help the wounded, and soldiers drilled for precision maneuvers. Every member knew that this was more than a battle. It was a chance to prove that cooperation could succeed where centuries of war had failed. Far across the galaxy, the warlords watched with growing unease. The humans were small, but their influence spread like wildfire. Every act of courage, every alliance formed, every world saved chipped away at the foundations of fear that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Captain Alara looked at the stars and whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning. The galaxy is waking up, and when it awakens, nothing will ever be the same." The fragile alliance of humans and allies stood ready. The war would continue, but now there was hope. And hope, once planted, could grow into a force stronger than any fleet, stronger than any weapon, and stronger than the oldest hate the galaxy had ever known. The border planet of Viridian was a jewel among the stars. Its oceans shimmered and its forests stretched for thousands of miles. But now it was under threat. A Zephyrian fleet, vast and deadly, approached at faster than light speed. Their ships were massive, armed with weapons capable of destroying entire continents in minutes. The Coalition knew that if Viridian fell, it would crush hope across the galaxy. Captain Alara Venn stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching the dark shapes appear against the stars. Her heart pounded, but her expression remained calm. "This is our moment," she told her crew. "We cannot fight like the warlords. We must fight like humans, clever, brave, and united." Her crew nodded. They had trained for this, studied the enemy, and prepared strategies that no traditional fleet could predict. The battle began with a roar. Zephyrian weapons fired indiscriminately, turning forest into ash and cities into rubble. The Coalition ships were smaller, but faster, weaving through the bombardment with precise maneuvers. Humans did not strike to kill, they struck to disable. They hacked enemy systems, short-circuited weapons, and jammed communications. Every move was calculated, every action saving as many lives as possible. Then the daring human boarding teams took action. Small squads of humans and allied soldiers infiltrated the Zephyrian ships. They did not slaughter the crews. They disabled engines, seized navigation controls, and freed prisoners. Entire vessels were rendered useless without a single life lost. Even the enemy's most feared commanders were stunned. "How can such small beings undo what we have built for decades?" one asked in disbelief. Amid the chaos, the Coalition began to gain ground. Allied fleets that had once quarreled now moved as one, coordinating attacks and rescues. Civilians trapped in ruined cities were evacuated while engineers repaired critical infrastructure. Farmers, traders, and scientists became part of the battle effort, proving that war could be fought without sacrificing the values of life and community. As the sun rose over Viridian, the Zephyrian fleet faltered. Ships retreated in confusion, their command systems crippled. The Coalition had achieved the impossible. They had defended a planet from an overwhelmingly stronger force without mass casualties. And the galaxy watched in awe. Captain Alara stood silently on the bridge, feeling the weight of what had been achieved. "We didn't destroy them," she whispered. "We changed the battle. We changed how war is fought." Her crew smiled, exhausted but proud. They had done what no one thought possible. Humans, small and underestimated, had turned the tide of a battle that could have crushed hope for generations. The victory at Viridian became a symbol. Across the galaxy, colonies began to resist oppression. Soldiers and commanders who had once obeyed orders to kill now paused to question the morality of their actions. Even the Zephyrians and Kalari began to reconsider their endless conflict. Humans were proving that courage, intelligence, and compassion could overcome power and fear. But Captain Alara knew that this was only the beginning. Larger battles awaited, and the warlords would not surrender easily. Yet the spark of hope had been ignited. The Coalition, united under the principles of humanity, had shown that a single species could inspire the galaxy to see a different path. For the first time in centuries, the stars felt alive, not with the roar of destruction, but with the hum of possibility. And in that moment, every life saved, every city rebuilt, and every fleet coordinated became a message to the galaxy. War can be ended not by fear, but by courage and hope. Captain Alara looked at the horizon and whispered, "We have turned the tide, and when the galaxy wakes fully, nothing will ever be the same." The battle was over, but the war continued. Still, humanity had proven something the galaxy had never believed. Even in the darkest times, a spark of courage and hope could change everything. After the victory at Viridian, the humans did not celebrate. They knew the war was far from over. But something remarkable had begun. The galaxy was listening. Slowly, carefully, humans and their coalition allies started to shape a future that had been unimaginable for centuries. Captain Alara Venn moved from planet to planet, not as a conqueror, but as a mediator. She spoke to leaders who had long been enemies, showing them that cooperation was stronger than fear. "You can choose to destroy," she said in one council chamber, "or you can choose to protect. The choice is yours, but the consequences affect millions of lives." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of experience, courage, and unwavering conviction. Humanity's influence spread not through weapons but through deeds. Engineers repaired broken cities. Scientists helped contaminated planets recover. Doctors treated civilians and soldiers alike. Soldiers protected refugees and rebuilt communities. Every small act of compassion created ripples across the galaxy, reminding people that life was more valuable than power, and hope was more powerful than fear. For the first time in generations, warlords hesitated. The Cypherians and Kalari, once unstoppable forces of destruction, paused to reconsider their actions. Leaders who had trained their entire lives to dominate now wondered, could there be a way to survive without destroying everything in sight? Humans had shown them that courage could take many forms, and that intelligence without compassion was not enough to endure. On the planet Devar, once a quiet world of scholars and traders, children learned of humans who had risked everything to save strangers. They told stories of Captain Alara and her crew boarding enemy ships to disable weapons without killing anyone. They spoke of fleets moving as one, of engineers repairing cities under fire, of medics running into danger to save lives. Humans became legends, not because of conquest, but because of the choices they made in the darkest times. Captain Alara watched the coalition grow stronger. Small factions joined together, inspired by human example. Refugees who had once fled for their lives now fought to protect their homes. Scientists and strategists shared knowledge and ideas freely. Every planet that joined the United Star Pact became a part of something larger than itself, a movement toward unity, understanding, and the protection of life. Yet the humans never sought glory. They never demanded loyalty or titles. Their victories were quiet, unassuming, and deeply human. They measured success not by how many enemies fell, but by how many lives they could save and how many hearts they could inspire. Their actions planted seeds that would grow long after the last battle had been fought. And then, in a quiet moment aboard the Intrepid, Captain Alara reflected on what had been achieved. "We are not the strongest," she said to her crew, "but we are brave. We do not dominate, we protect. We do not destroy, we save. And that, our choices, our humanity, will be remembered long after the war is over." Her crew nodded, tears in their eyes, understanding the truth of her words. Across the galaxy, the effects of humanity's courage were clear. Planets that had been abandoned were alive again. Children played in cities that were once rubble. Farmers tilled lands that had been scorched. Soldiers who had fought for centuries without purpose found meaning in rebuilding rather than destroying. Humans had created a legacy that no weapon could erase, a legacy of hope, courage, and unshakable morality. The war still raged in pockets of the galaxy, but the tide had changed. Where fear had once ruled, hope now had a foothold. Where hatred had once burned, trust began to grow. And at the heart of it all, humans moved quietly, humbly, but powerfully, shaping the galaxy not with fear, but with choice. Captain Alara looked out at the stars, thinking of the lives they had touched, the worlds they had saved, and the warlords who had begun to question their ways. "This is what it means to be human," she whispered. "To fight, to protect, and to inspire. To change the galaxy without losing yourself." And in that moment, the galaxy, scarred, battered, but alive, felt the true weight of humanity's legacy. The war could continue, but the hope that humans had planted would never be extinguished. Years had passed since the first battle at Nerine. The galaxy, once scarred by endless war, was beginning to heal. Planets rebuilt, trade routes reopened, and the hum of life returned to worlds that had long been silent. The humans had become more than a species. They had become a symbol of hope, courage, and unity. Captain Alara Venn stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, looking out at the stars. She could see fleets moving across the galaxy, not to destroy but to protect. Ships from former enemies now traveled together, sharing knowledge and resources. Leaders who had once planned conquest now negotiated peace. Humans had taught the galaxy a simple truth: survival was stronger than power, and hope could conquer even the deepest hatred. The warlords, those who had once ruled through fear and violence, now faced a choice. Some resisted, clinging to old ways, but many began to follow humanity's example. They saw that destruction did not bring strength, it only left ashes. Diplomacy, cooperation, and courage brought life, prosperity, and loyalty. Across countless systems, the message spread. The galaxy could be rebuilt, and every species had a role to play. Captain Alara traveled to one such system, where a small world called Ilyara had been ravaged by decades of conflict. Entire cities had been reduced to rubble, and yet, the people worked tirelessly to rebuild. They spoke of humans who had come not with weapons, but with hope. Engineers had restored power grids, farmers had replanted fields, children laughed again, and the humans, true to their nature, had moved on quietly, leaving only guidance, encouragement, and inspiration. The final turning point came when a massive fleet, led by the last stubborn Zypherian commanders, approached a vulnerable coalition world. The humans could have met them with weapons and fury, but they did something extraordinary. They coordinated a strategy that combined diplomacy, courage, and intelligence. Messages were sent to the enemy offering choice: retreat, or join a new galaxy where life was valued over conquest. To the shock of the galaxy, the Zypherians chose to listen. One by one, ships lowered their weapons. Fleets that had once terrorized star systems now became part of a coalition, dedicated to protection and rebuilding. The war that had lasted 1,000 years ended, not in fire, but in understanding. Captain Alara watched the surrender, not with triumph, but with quiet humility. She knew this victory was not about humans alone. It was about the courage to choose life over death, hope over fear, and unity over hatred. Across the galaxy, civilizations began to trust each other again. Trade resumed. Cultures exchanged knowledge, and planets once thought lost became thriving centers of life. Humans did not seek glory. They had changed the galaxy not through domination, but through example. Their legacy was not in the fleets they commanded or the battles they fought. It was in the countless lives they saved, the ideas they inspired, and the hope they planted in hearts that had long been broken. Captain Alara stood alone on the bridge one evening, staring at the stars. She whispered softly, "We came from a small blue planet. We had nothing but courage, hope, and each other, and that was enough to change everything." The galaxy, once darkened by war, was now alive with light. Planets glimmered in peace. Species worked together to explore the stars, not to destroy but to create. Humanity had reminded the universe of a truth it had long forgotten. No war is eternal. No species is weak, and courage paired with hope can change the fate of countless worlds. And so, a galaxy that had known only endless war began anew. Humanity's spark burned bright, lighting a path for others to follow. The stars were no longer silent. They sang a song of life, resilience, and the power of the human spirit, a song that would echo for generations to come. In the end, the humans had not conquered the galaxy with weapons or fear. They had conquered it with something far greater: heart. And in doing so, they had truly changed everything.